Hello besties, today I'm going to be sharing with you my 5 hours framework for reflection. It's not my theory, but I'm just going to be sharing with you on how you can use it to process your emotions, to process events as they occurred and what happened. So stay tuned for the 5 hours framework for reflection. Thank you for all your likes. Thank you for your subscription. And thank you for dropping your comments in the comment section. In my video on how to handle your emotions, and if you haven't seen that video, just check the description box. I'll drop the link there. I was discussing that a lot of times we just stuff ourselves with emotions. Things happen and we don't process them. We don't go through them. We don't have a framework. We're so scared oftentimes, to even look back at what really happened. So we leave those emotions probably out of fear, out of, whatever. Just it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't have happened. Why do I need to go through it? And then we don't really look deep into it, and we find ourselves actually making the same mistakes if we made mistakes over and over again. We find those things happening over and again, and we're like, oh, if I had known, why did I react like this? Why did I respond like this? Remember, some of these responses are actually automated, like I explained in my video on how your brain affects your mind and affects you. So these responses are automated. Some of the things we're going to be discussing here, and like today, I want to talk about some of the tools you can use to process your emotions. When events happen, how do you react to them? And how can you use your previous reactions, work on them, process them, reflect on them, and find a better construct, a more value-oriented or identity-oriented construct or mode of behavior, and how can we now incorporate it into our response system, in such a way that the brain picks it up and says, oh yes, this is how I should respond. It now becomes automated. So let me head straight into the first framework. The number one thing you do in assessing your emotion or in reflection is reporting. In reporting, you're going to be asking, what happened? What was the event that brought about this emotion? What was the event that took place? I lost my mother. I lost my job. I was sad. What happened around that event? What was the event that happened? What are the key aspects of the situation? Who was involved? My boss was involved. My friend was involved. A colleague was involved. Who were those that were involved? Now, remember, in reflecting, you're going to be doing this by asking questions. In these questions, you're not trying to change the event. With these questions, you're not trying to change what has already happened. What you're just trying to do is look back, probe, analyze, process in order to build a better construct for future. So this first part is reporting. What happened? Who was involved? What was the event? The second R of this 5-part framework for assessing your emotions and for reflection is responding. I had an event. That was what happened in the reporting phase. This happened. In the responding phase, you're going to be asking, how did I feel? How did I think? What made me think this way? What made me feel this way? For a practical example, I lost my job. I'm using that as an example. I lost my job. I was fired, or I left my job. I left my job because I felt, or I was feeling stressed. I was feeling overwhelmed. I thought that If I stayed longer here, I will be found out. It will be, discovered that maybe I'm a fraud or something. So these are things, remember, please, I'm just using these as examples. These are things that you process, you probe, you ask, how was I thinking when that event happened? How was I feeling? I was feeling stressed. I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling happy. I was feeling sad. Remember, when we talk about emotions, we're just reflecting on everything that happened. So we're not just reflecting on only the good emotions or the exciting emotions. We're not only reflecting on the not so favorable emotions at that point. We're reflecting on every part of what happened. In this section, we talked about responding. How did I respond? The third R for this framework is relating. So in relating, you want to talk about how you have seen this before, or if you have seen this before, and the similarities or differences that the previous events and the previous feelings and thoughts, like how they compare to each other. So if, for an example, I've been scared before, I've had to be put on stage to speak before, and this event I am analyzing has to do with being given a job to just stand on stage and talk with people. So I'm checking, what happened the previous time? What happened this time? How did it affect or relate to my thoughts, my feelings, and the outcome of the whole event, of the whole process? So it's really important to understand that in reflection, we're going to be asking questions, we're digging deep, we're checking it to know how it happened, what happened, and how we can make progress from here. So remember to reflect, relate in this third phase, relate that particular event to the previous event. The fourth R is reasoning. So what are the aspects of this situation that are very important? What are the important aspects and why are they important? So what is it about? Probably the way I was told. For some people, it may be the way they were told to, go and do the job, or the way they were told to, or the time they were told. Maybe they weren't even given an opportunity to prepare. They were just told, "Oh, well, we have a meeting and you're standing and you're presenting this," and maybe that was what really got them scared or stressed or panicked or angry or sad. So what are the important aspects of this situation and why? And is there anything that will help me make sense of the situation? Like, are there other perspectives to it? Is it probably maybe the way I heard it or the way it was said? Or is there another perspective to it? Could it be that, probably my boss was trying to help me to conquer my fear, or, he also got the information late and he saw me as someone he could trust? So these are things that, you need to put into consideration. And how would a more knowledgeable or a kinder person, or so how would a different me react to this situation or respond to this situation? So remember, we're reasoning, we're doing a lot of thinking, we're now thinking through this particular situation or event. And remember, in reflection, generally, even when it has to do with mental health, you need to focus on change based on who you want to be, based on an identity. It's easier to change based on identity. I'm going to be sharing a video on that. Who do I want to be? Who am I? Based on my identity, also a more assertive person. How would a more assertive person respond? If, for an example, your issue is maybe anger or stress and you've not been able to communicate, how would someone that can communicate better respond to this situation? How would someone that understands her boundaries better respond to this situation? How would someone that is kinder respond to this? So these are things that, you need to assess when we're talking about reasoning. We're talking about what are the things that I would have done better? What are the aspects of this situation that is important, and a different perspective? How would a different perspective have helped me to react, or how would a different perspective fit into this situation? Like, what would the reaction be, or what would my response have been if I had a different perspective to this situation? So that's what we do in reasoning. The fifth framework in this, is reconstructing. In this part or this phase of reflection, what you're trying to do is pull from all the other phases, all the other aspects that you've checked. You've related how, we've talked about the responding, we've talked about the reporting, we've talked about the relating, we've talked about the reasoning, and now in reconstructing, you're trying to see how did all the things I learned from these previous phases, how do I now pull a construct or something different that I can do, subsequently? For an example, if I have an issue with angry outbursts, so what happened was my boss called me to his office and um, told me something, and I busted out. I'm just using that as an example. That was the event. And then in the next phase, which is the responding phase, I felt very upset. I felt let down. I was thinking, is this person about to fire me? Is this person saying that I am not being productive? And then how did I respond? I exploded and shouted back at my boss. I'm using that as an example. Then relating this, it's happened before. The previous job I had, every 2 weeks they query me and for even things, and I ask, what exactly did I do wrong? And they don't tell me. Relating, it has happened before, and that time when it happened, I asked them, what was I supposed to do better? Now in relating, and we now move to the responding phase. In reasoning, sorry, I am trying to say, okay, wow, maybe I shouted in that previous time. It was possible that my voice was too loud and my boss felt threatened or felt like I was insulting him, or felt, so it's possible that I'm having I shout too much, or when I'm excited, or when I feel upset, or when I'm thinking that I'm about to, I begin to shout. So in reasoning, I'm saying, oh wow, someone who is calmer, someone who has a control of their emotions, someone who is more emotionally intelligent than I am, or if I were more emotionally intelligent, how would I have responded in that situation? Now remember, we're reflecting on all this, and in this reconstructing phase, we're asking questions. We're now saying, how would I need to do things differently in the future? Oh, I noticed that it was when he called me into my office that I became panicked, and my blood pressure went up and I started breathing heavily. Then when he now said what he said, I became very furious. It fueled the fire. So subsequently, I'm looking now at reconstructing. If such a thing happens again and my boss, calls me to his office, I could decide, oh well, maybe subsequently I should take a deep breath first. I should check what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking may not be true. I'm looking at a different perspective to why I was called to his office, or I'm looking at a different perspective to why I was given such a task without prior notice. I'm looking at a different perspective, and I'm checking the tools that I have to assess those things. Another question that you can ask is, what might work in subsequently? What might work and what might not? For an example, if my boss was upset and he was shouting at me, shouting back may not work, because I've checked, I noticed that when I shouted in the previous time, it almost cost me my job. So at this time, I'm saying, oh wow, I think I should be quiet, and probably when I'm quiet, I should just keep taking a deep breath. So you see, these are tools. You're now looking at the past event, the present event, how does it relate? Okay, so I should be taking a deep breath. It will help me to stay calm. It will help me to think more clearly before I say or respond to what he mentioned at that time. Then you're going to be asking, can I make changes to benefit others as well? Are there things I can change with myself that can benefit others involved in that event? For an example, you could say, oh wow, maybe at that point I could also say, sir, instead of just saying, I'm sorry at that point, it may not benefit him. At that, I could just say, sir, I think this may not be a good time to address this issue. Would you mind excusing me? That's more assertive communication. So these are things you're checking. So you're asking what might happen if I ask him to just give me a few minutes to, excuse me for a few minutes to go recollect, or just take a tea break, or take a coffee break, or just take a walk so that I calm down. What might happen if I ask him, or if I tell him, sir, please, I know you want to discuss something, or ma, depending on your boss, whatever, however you respond, can you give me a few minutes to, I know you want to address an important issue. I was just about to do something. Can you give me a few minutes to just wrap it up and come back? And you could take those few minutes to, take a deep breath or do something different that will put you in a more relaxed state for what is to come. So these are the 5 R's framework for reflection. Very important tools that you can use to reflect on previous events in order to process how you can be different and act or respond differently in the future. Thank you for joining me in this session. I remain Eberechukwu Ona, your mental health bestie. See you in the next video.